Hi there and welcome back to Solo Board Gaming Presents, and today we're looking again at 2GM Pacific from Draco Ideas, and we're going to have a look at a solo playthrough demo. So we're going to do a bit of a playthrough of the solo rules, not an entire game. Don't know, it may be 3, 4, 5 turns, something like that, just to get the solo rules down slowly at first, and then I'll speed up in the last couple of turns, just so we can show how easy and fluid it actually is. Okay, so let's get started. I've just set it out like this at the moment because here I've got the solo mode summary sheet, the solo mode player aid from the game box, and also the campaign book. And we're going to have a look at the solo rules, but in relation to the scenario Bataan, which is scenario 4 out of the 5 initial scenarios in the 20 scenario campaign book. So we're going to have a look at scenario 4, Bataan, which is a historical scenario. The first thing I've done, it's really easy, because obviously the first thing we need to do is make up the hand for the AI. The Americans are going to be the defender, so I'm using the Defender AI. I'll be playing the Japanese, and so on. So the reason I've set out the cards like this is because to choose a deck without being biased for the AI, we use this system. So if you have a look at the solo mode summary, and these icons here, we've got infantry, artillery, armour, transport and support cards in that order. Don't take any notice of the numbers underneath, just the icons. So I've separated the US deck in those terms. I have infantry, artillery, armour, transport and support cards. I've taken out any cards that are 1943 onwards, because in this scenario we can't use them. And again, specific to this scenario Bataan, I've taken out any US aircraft because there's none in this particular scenario. So that was really easy to do. We've just split ourselves up into these categories. Now, so you look at the scenario sheet, and the scenario sheet will give you solo game mode, numbers to draw of each card category. So I'm looking at US defensive AI, there we are, and I can draw 17 cards, 3 cards, 1 card, 3 cards, 16 cards from these particular decks. So 17 infantry cards, let's get straight into it. Just draw them off the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's my deck beginning to take place. I now need 3 from the artillery deck, which are these babies here. 1, 2, 3 onto the deck, look. What else do I need? 1 from the armour deck. 1. And I go 3 from the transport deck, which will be this one here. So 3 units of transport. 1, 2, 3. And finally, I think this is a big one, isn't it? Yeah, 16 from the support cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 support cards. like so. That's it. The rest of these cards now are going to be put away back in the box. These cards are going to be mega shuffled and they're going to form the play deck for the US AI. One more thing I'm going to do in the meantime is there's a great illustration here for the Battle of Bataan, which shows me where to set up the various differing bits of scenery. And I think, yeah, it's got both artificial and natural scenery here, how to set it all up. This one's going to be a bit of a slogfest. We'll explain that later. So I'm going to shuffle the US AI deck and I'm going to place out these scenario cards back in a moment. So here we are. We've zoomed out to take in all of the battle map for today. That means I'm going to have to do quite a lot of compromises. I can't show any cards, for instance, that are off the side of the board. Otherwise, everything, I would have to zoom out too far and everything would be even smaller than it is already. So it really is a bit of a compromise, and I'm going to have to continue in that vein as we go through it. But I've set out the board according to the scenario setup rules in the campaign book for the Battle of Bataan. Shows me where to put all the natural and artificial terrain, like so. That's not always the case because where it doesn't show you where to put terrain, you would use the normal terrain deployment rules, which we won't go through now. They're in the book and they're reasonably clear and understood. Little bit of a problem. I found that because there's so much terrain here, they said in the book that that I had to place out 3 trenches as well as foxholes and all the other stuff. But unfortunately, we've also got to lay out 3 sections of barbed wire. And trenches are on the other side of the barbed wire. So that was a little bit of a problem for me. So I thought, no, that's not going to worry me. I'm not going to get hung up on that. I want to play this game. So instead, I'm just going to replace one with a foxhole and the other one with a hideout. No big deal. I'm not going to worry about that again. So that's where we are. I thought the barbed wire was important because that's actually inaccessible to everything except tanks. So it's inaccessible to infantry, to transport, and things like that. So only tanks can get through it. And as the Japanese player, we don't have many of those. And they might not even come out into my hand from the deck. I don't know. So the only other thing I can do is to go around the edges. Here we've got forest look. And here again, if we come round this edge, we'd be up against the trench line, foxholes, and so on. So that's going to be difficult unless we can upgrade some of our infantry, and that's going to slow me down because of spending points on it. Upgrade some of our infantry as sappers, if the right kind of infantry come out, because sappers can remove barbed wire. Finally, instead of being that way up, the game has instructed that I place the cards that way up, so that each card covers 2 sections, like so. The objective for the Japanese player, which is the attacker, is, if you see this line here, this is the centre line. I would have to get 3 cards, 3 units, across the centre line and survive to the end of any enemy turn. Okay, so anytime that happens, the game will end. Getting 3 units across that centre line and have them survive the end of any enemy turn, that would finish the game. simply by the end of the game, which is 21 turns long, and that counts the turns of each side, by the way. The US defenders, which is the AI, they merely have to prevent me from achieving my own victory condition. So that's where we are to start off with. Looking forward to this, hay fever permitting. It's giving me a bit of jip at the moment with the grass pollen flying around, and it's a beautiful day outside. So let's get stuck in. Okay, so let's start. Our campaign book tells us that each side starts with 7 action points and 5 cards. And the Japanese, as the attacker, that's me, goes first. So without further ado, here's my Japanese deck. Let me take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards off the shuffled deck. And see what we start with. Oh, yes. Oh, great. I've got an artillery piece here. Oh, I might try a bit of that, actually. Now, I'm not going to spend too long over the Japanese moves because it's the solo AI that we're much more concerned with. So here we go. The gun is going to start there for 3 points. So I've paid 3 points for that. What does that leave me? That leaves me 4 points. Excellent. What's the range of this? 3. 1, 2, 3. Cool. And who else shall we? How about some heavy infantry? There we go. Put some heavy infantry down for 2 points, and I'll upgrade him with an HMG, I think. So let's find ourselves an HMG. Here we go. In my tokens, if I can get it out. There we go. There's the HMG. So that's an extra point. So total of 3 points there, leaving me 1 point, and I think I'll save that 1 point. They can't move because it's their deployment turn. Or shall I spend? Yeah, come on, be bold. I'll spend my last point on the light infantry for 1 deployment point. So there you go, we're all spent out. Now then, more importantly, so that was my deployment. There's no shooting involved. 1, 2, 3. I could attack that cover actually. 1, 2, 3. I think for the sake of completeness, I should do that. It has a range of 3. So let's try and hit it, because terrain, some terrain anyway, can be destroyed. Look, for instance, these foxholes have 2 hit points. So let's take a go at that. Okay, so here's my dice, rolling for shooting that artillery. Oh, we've got an 8. We have an 8. And I need a 6+ to hit. And I cause 2 damage. Bang! 2 damage. I've destroyed the foxholes. Or basically, of course, the foxholes are no longer usable. So that's cool. Good start. And that's us. Okay, so that's our turn sort of finished. So let's get over to the AI, which is the most important thing. So they also have 5 cards and 7 points. Let's get those 7 points onto their headquarters boards, which I've got the headquarters boards over here. That's just so I can reach them, and you can't see them anyway, I don't think so. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. And I've got 7 action points to spend. First thing we're always going to do is divide the cards up into their various categories. So I've got infantry, I've got transport, I've got a support card, infantry and infantry. Okay, and now I'm just going to stock the infantry in the order of their points value. So 2, 2 and 1, like so. And now I'm going to look at what the stance is. It's very easy actually, because in the beginning of the game, both turns 1 and 2, I simply apply the initial stance. In the advanced solo rules, initial behaviour for both turns 1 and 2. And we are playing defensive AI, which is here. So it's hold your position. So during turns 1 and 2, we're just going to hold our position. That's our instruction, which means reinforce with units the AI's battle objective without compromising the supply line. We will never voluntarily break any supply line that we have. So that's a hard and fast rule. And we'll reinforce our objective if possible. Now, our objective, if you like, is the enemy objective, which is to break our defensive lines. So this is the part of the board where we need to try and reinforce it. And how do we do that? Well, if we look at our playing aid again, we are initial deployment of cards in turns 1 and 2 is going to be this priority here. Our first priority is going to be artillery. Our second priority is going to be defensively upgrading any infantry. And our third priority is tanks. So for instance, if we come back over here, if we had all of these represented, artillery, secondly infantry, and thirdly tanks, if we had all of those, we would deploy one of each, if at all possible, if we have the points available. But we don't. Out of all those categories, the only thing we do have is infantry. So again, that was really easy. So let's look at the infantry. And in fact, it further tells us number of cards to deploy. We look at how many hit points, action points we have, and we have 6 action points available. So it'll tell us to deploy 1 card with a cost of 5+. We don't have any. Our highest card is a 2. Otherwise, deploy 2 cards with a cost of 3+ each. Can't do that. If none of the above, deploy 2 or 3 cards with any cost. So that's what we're going to do, bearing in mind our priority list for the first 2 turns. So this has been really easy so far. So really, the only thing on that priority list is infantry. So these are the guys we're going to deploy and upgrade them defensively if possible. So that's a 2, that's a 2. I think the first thing then is obviously heavy infantry, because I can upgrade this guy with an HMG or hit the dirt. Now an HMG is still a defensive piece of equipment. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pay 2 and 1 for the HMG. Where are you? Come on, baby. Here we go. So we're going to deploy him for 3. That's not a deployment there, by the way. I've just placed him there for the moment. The next one we're going to deploy is the Special Forces. Oh, okay. By the way, just take my 3 action points off. Okay, and I've got 4 left. So I can't decide whether I want to upgrade. I've got to put an upgrade on. So here we go. I'm going to pay 2. And then for an upgrade, I'm looking at if we've got anything offensive here, anything defensive here. I'm going to go to the obvious one, hit the dirt, for a +1. So reach over here. Is that a hit the dirt? Yes, it is. Okay. So that's another 3 I've spent. And now we've got just 1 action point left. So for that, there's no question, the light infantry for 1. Can't afford to upgrade him. So there you go. So now you can see how really easy that is. As long as we always divide whatever cards we have into their categories, we can decide according to the priority lists what is going to be deployed. And how are we going to deploy them? Well, first of all, we are not going to break our supply line. We don't have one at the moment, by the way. Secondly, we're going to deploy to confront. Is that the word? They might use another word, actually. I'm just going to quickly check on that. What do they call it? Do they call it confrontation? I can't find it. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Confronted units. So first of all, we're going to confront on the same row units of the enemy according to, number 1, can each unit that I deploy actually have an impact on the confronted unit? In other words, do our armor piercing value affect the unit? If it can't, for instance, if it was infantry against a tank and there's no bazooka or anything like that, then we wouldn't place it to confront a tank. So that's simple. So first of all, we're looking to confronting units. What was the first one I drew? Was it I think it was the heavy infantry, weren't it? So that's going to be the first one for me to deploy. And I'm going to deploy against the most expensive unit that I can harm. That has a 4 armor value, and we've got 3 armor piercing, but with a machine gun. That raises to 4 armor piercing. So theoretically I can't make any other decision as that as the human player. I must allow the AI to do that. So he deploys like so. Now the only other thing is, in the initial setup for the defense, it does allow you to deploy not only on the deployment line, but on any previously placed terrain. Now, because he's confronting that one, I'm not going to do that. I'm taking it literally. I'm not trying to over-interpret it. That's what I'm doing. Confronting the most dangerous enemy unit that I can affect. Next one. The heavy infantry, because it's upgraded. That's another priority. So here we go. The special forces are definitely going to confront this one. But can we go into, yes, he's going to go behind the mountain. I'll explain that in a moment, because he's also going to go as close to cover as possible in this initial deployment. Secondly, light infantry against light infantry. So he's going to deploy and he's going to do the same thing. So we've obeyed all the rules and we have the start of a supply line, like so. So I'm happy that that's the initial deployment of the defensive AI. And even though I was explaining it, that was fairly quick. So I think I now, just before we move on, owe you an explanation as to why I placed the cards there and said it was a defensive position. First of all, as I mentioned, the initial setup for this particular campaign allows me to place the defense either on the deployment line or on or close to any previously laid terrain. So that's what I've done there. But why here? Well, first of all, we're confronting. That's one of the first rules. But secondly, famously, 2GM in general doesn't have any line of sight rules at all, which means you can shoot through any kind of terrain, no matter what it is, you can shoot straight through it. That's absolutely great. I know the reason for that, and it's so that it remains a fast, bish bash bosh game that's very easily accessible and tons of fun, and it's all of those things. So that's absolutely fine. However, as much as I tried that and accepted it largely, there's just a couple of things, and there's honestly, I've house ruled that there's just 3 cards in the whole game that I will not shoot through because I deem that they block line of sight, and 2 of them are on this board, and they're as follows. Mountains. I can't allow my brain to shoot through a mountain. I just can't do it. So mountains block line of sight for me. The other one is forest, because I looked at the art, and that's all it comes down to. I looked at the art on the cards, and this is thick, dense forest. My brain won't allow me to shoot straight through it, having completely clear line of sight. So that's the second card that I don't shoot through. Everything else, I'm fine. Let's have a look. What else we got? Bushes, great. I'll shoot through them. Jungle, because you can see daylight on the jungle card. I don't have it on here at the moment. That's absolutely fine. Houses, because you can be, huts and things like that, because you can be shooting over them, around them. Absolutely fine. The third one, apart from mountain and this dense forest here that I don't shoot through, is buildings. There are none in this particular scenario, but buildings, because they represent, I don't know, a small town. You could say it's a large village, but I don't shoot straight through buildings. So it's just these 3 things. So essentially, those mountains then are providing cover. Makes a lot more sense. Doesn't slow the game down at all. Provides a little bit more strategic depth, or tactical depth, really, on the game, and absolutely maintains the fun element. So that's where we are on that. So the next one is the shooting phase. Do they have anything to shoot at? No, they don't. Discard phase. It's quite awkward reading, I must admit, in the advanced rules for discard phase. Basically, you will keep the top 3 cards that are in your priority lists. There are nothing here in the priority list. Plus up to 3 other cards that may or may not be useful. So basically, I'm keeping these 2 cards, and or rather the AI is. So we'll see how we go. There's no need to do anything else there. So that's the end of the first AI turn. I hope that was okay. The board is looking good, and we're going to have quite a lot to do here to actually achieve anything with our little Type 1 47mm artillery piece here. Brilliant. Okay, so turn 2 for the Japanese, turn 3 in total, as far as the game limit is concerned. So start is the end of ongoing game effects. The HQ cards, we generate action points. So we generate 1 action point from the HQ, and just 1 action point for being in this first row. So total of 2 action points, not a lot. We draw 2 cards from the top of the deck, 1, 2, like so. Add them to our previous 2. Let's have a look what we're... got to do it. Brilliant. But first it's movement. So let's try and move some of these guys. Each of them can only ever move one anyway. So let's move my HMG up into this cover here in the forest. Yes. There he is. Skulking. Got a good view here. Let's have a look now. Shall I move? I don't really need... Yes. We'll move our artillery piece. One move into the bushes. And we'll move our light infantry as well up into the forest. There we are. We're approaching our objective. Now comes to deployment. 100% definitely. I've only got 2 points, so for one of them I'm going to deploy my radio operator. Definitely. So my radio operator goes there. And actually I need to try and keep him because he generates an action point, you see. So I'm going to upgrade him with hit the dirt. Just might make him a little bit more difficult to hit. So there we go. So that's 2 points. So I've used my 2 action points there, basically to deploy that 1 unit. What do you have next? Shooting. Shooting. The HMG has a range of 3. I'm thinking of this guy, you see. 1, 2. Can't go any further. Line of sight. Not going to shoot through a mountain. So I'll belay that. I could shoot against some kind of terrain, couldn't I? I don't know. It's the same here. He's only got 2. Let's have a look at our friend here, who can shoot 3. 1, 2, 3. Or you go 1, 2, 3. Shall we? Shall we? Blast a gap. I'm going to go again. Okay. We're going to try and fire with our anti... Oh, 6. And we've got a 6. Against these foxholes here. If I hit, I get 2 hits. That can only take 2 hits. Boom, 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 boom. Artillery barrage, basically. That's how I'm interpreting it. Has basically made those foxholes pretty useless. Blasting a hole in this defensive line. And that's where we'll leave it for now. Do I need to discard anything? No, I'm still well within my hand limit. And now, on to again the defensive AI. We're still in those first 2 turns, so we know what the stance is. It's the same as before, which is simply reinforce those first couple of rows, reinforce the objective, don't break the supply line. So, first of all, he's going to generate action points. The HQ generates 1, and he gets 1 action point for that row, 1 action point for this row, so that's another 2 action points for a total of 3. So he's got 3 action points, not a bad start. And 1, 2 cards we're drawing, like so. Those were the previous ones. Let's have a look. Oh, look at this. Look at this. M1 howitzer and light infantry. Needs the M1 howitzer. And in fact, if we remember, it's the top priority to deploy. In priority order, that's where we are. However, I can't deploy it, or rather the AI can't deploy it, because he needs 5 points. He only has 3 points. Can't do it. Next priority is a card next in priority order, and that is the light infantry for only 1. So again, that was an easy decision to make. He's going to deploy that unit. First of all, no, wrong. I was going to say, first of all, I've got to do movement, but that's completely wrong. First of all, the AI, it's reversed. First of all, the AI does deployment. That's right. So, deployment in order of confrontation. Can't confront this one because the deployment line is taken up. And anyway, his armor piercing value, which is only 2, wouldn't be able to do that. So, am I supposed to upgrade him? I am, defensively. And really defensively, it needs to be hit the dirt. Got to do it, got to follow the rules. Don't make your own decisions, Paul. Follow the rules. So, I'll pay 1 for the deployment and 1 for the upgrade, which is going to be hit the dirt. Let's take it out of my box. Just follow the rules. There we go. So for a total of 2 points, the most deadly is his upgraded heavy infantry unit. So that's where he's going to deploy. Very, very simple. There he is. Next thing is movement. So how is movement during those first 2 turns? Again, for movement, we look at the overall stance of the AI. We know that in turns 1 and 2, and this is their second turn of this particular campaign, their stance is as follows. I'm just going to, because it's really worth reiterating as far as movement is concerned. Here we go. It's in the book, Defensive AI. Reinforce rows. The AI's unit movement is aimed at reaching the battle objective, which we know is the row here. As long as it has at least 2 units on rows 5 and 6 to maintain the supply line. So that's what we're going to do. Other than that, they're going to keep moving forward towards cover and towards the most dangerous enemy. In other words, the enemy that is closest to that objective. So it's very, very simple how we're going to move these guys. We're going to deal with the frontmost ones first. He is going to move up to the mountain. He can only move 1. There you go. So he's on the mountain. He's on the ridge there. He's going to move up to the ridge. Like so. And now they can certainly see for shooting. Now, he is opposing and he is opposing. One of these needs to move and one needs to stay behind. Who is the most deadly? And this is how I'm not necessarily making the decision. I'm looking at the most destructive of these units. It's going to be him. He's going to move forward 1. And we've maintained our supply line. So we've stuck to all the rules. Now, eventually, I hope to move these into cover as we go further into the game. So now we're on the shooting phase. Again, relatively simple. Each unit is going to see if it can first fire at any target at all. Then it's going to choose the most dangerous target, if you see what I mean, which is normally the highest value target, and also any target that's closer to the objective than any others. So let's start again with the forwardmost units. I'm going to look at this chap here. He's got a range of 2. 1, 2. He is going to fire at this unit. It's the only unit he can fire at. This unit is a third step along. 1, 2, 3. So he is going to fire at this unit. Here he goes. Takes his dice. What do we need, guys? There's no upgrades on here. A 5+ for a hit. He's in the forest here, which gives an evasion of +1. So he actually now needs a 6+ for a hit. Oh, he's only got a 1. Absolutely no good whatsoever. This guy, he is now going to do exactly the same thing. He's got a range of 2, and he needs a 5+ for a hit. They're in the forest, so he needs a 6+ for a hit. He's got a 5, no hit at all. Now then, couple of chances here maybe. He's going to fire his heavier weapon first, the weapon upgrade. So here we go, and that has a range, I think we looked at this before, didn't we? He has a range of 3, armor piercing value of 4, which is within the range for this gun here, and a range of 3. So 1, 2, 3, nice one. And for the US HMG, he needs a 4+ for a hit, but this guy's in the bushes, which gives him an evasion of +1, so he needs a 5+ for a hit on this artillery piece. Here we go. He's got a 7. What would a critical hit be? Oh, critical hit for the HMG is 8+. Okay. And in fact, because of the bushes, it would actually be 9+. So anyway, he scored a definite hit. HMG. Oh, and it's 3. He scored a hit of 3 on this, 3 damage on this artillery piece. Said it more like an MG34 then, didn't it? That'll do. So, but we're using the shield roll as an advanced rule. So let's go with that. Our shielding is 4. So we need that or under. 5. Didn't save it, unfortunately. So the HMG has scored 3 hits. He can only take 3 hits. Destroyed. Kaboom. Wiped them out. There you go. So that's how that one works. That's a good move for the defensive AI. That's the shooting phase over. Now, we have to flip over because the HMG fired. So we flip over that HMG like so. You can't fire again yet. Do we need to discard? No, we need those. We can keep up to 3. We've certainly got 1 plus up to 3 more. We're cool. So now I think you can see, even though I'm endeavouring to explain, it's still relatively quick. Would that be fair? To play the AI, it's not disrupting my game, and even though I am explaining it, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Again, it takes me back to moving miniatures around on the coffee table, but that's lovely. I thoroughly enjoy that. Where were we before I digress too much? I know I've got a habit of doing that. I must apologise. So it's the Japanese turn. HQ phase generates 1 action point. And what other action points have we got? We've got 1 for that row, 1 for that row, so that's 2 more. The radio operator generates another action point, so that's 3 more. So that's 1, 2, 3. Total of 4. Come on, the Japanese. Okay. And we're going to draw 2 more cards for Japan. Let's just see what we have. before we do the movement phase. Anything really, heavy infantry again, special forces. So quite a few forces. Now what I have noticed is here, I might end up trying to deploy this guy because he has the sapper's ability, and it's what we need for these. Anyway, too much. First of all, movement. Ouch. That's not easy, is it? Can't move forward into the barbed wire. Bit of gamesmanship here. I'm just going to move him out. Leave him there. So at least he's ready to move forward. Was that stupid? Yeah, it was stupid. No. We're just gaming here. Okay, so deployment. Now let's see, what do we want to deploy? We said sappers, didn't we? I don't think I've just got enough. I'm going to need 4 points. Special forces, 2 to deploy and 2 to add the sapper upgrade. So total of 4, and that's exactly how many points I've got. So I'm obviously going to go here. 2, let's find the sapper upgrade. It's my little pincers, isn't it? There we go. A pair of pliers. Wire cutters. For a total of 4, that's expensive. Okay, so that's all the movement and deployment. Shooting. Now, come on, we must have a target here now. Heavy infantry. Machine gun. Thinking of this guy here. Has a range of 3. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. Fairly obvious. He's going to attack that unit there. Pretty exposed. He's on the crest line of the mountain. That's how I read it. That's for my story. And this HMG is going to open up on him like so. He has no protection from being on that crest line, unfortunately. And the HMG needs a 4+ to hit. Will he? Yes, of course he will. Come on. Oh, he's got a 3! Nothing! He missed! Okay, can he fire his section weapon? 1, 2, no he can't. He can't reach it. Okay, the next one that can fire is our friend here, the light infantry. 1, 2, directly ahead onto that crest line. He's going to do it. He needs 6+ to hit. Look at this. Okay. Oh, and he's got an 8. He has an 8. That's a hit. And it scored 1 hit on these guys. These guys are going to try and save themselves, rolling a 2 or less. They can't do it. So 1 hit, so 1 wound on that unit over there. Ouch. Okay, so I've got a wounded unit. Put a wound token on there. You can take a total of 3, look there. I don't know if you can see that. So there we go. So that's the shooting over for these guys. We used the HMG, so we turn that over like so. We flip the counter, and that's the. We haven't got a discard, have we? No, we're absolutely fine for the Japanese. And we go on to turn the 3rd turn of the AI, where now we're going to look at its stance because we've finished the first 2 turns. Now, this is where the AI picks up. It can potentially change its behaviour dependent on the state of the game. And we're going to use a matrix like so. I'll explain it in a moment. But it is very easily understood actually in the rules, particularly in the advanced rules, where the AI will take a snapshot of the state of the battlefield. And it'll do that by trying to determine where the defensive cards are positioned as opposed to where the attacking cards of the human player are positioned. So let's take a look. So that's the first thing we're going to do for this turn of the AI. So on this matrix here, we're only interested where it says historical scenario defender AI, because that's what we're playing at the moment, and the other rows where it says all. So the first thing we're going to do, all, and for each row occupied by one of the AI units, we get +3 behavior modifier. So each row occupied by one of the AI units. 3, 6, and this one has 2. So the modifier is now 4 instead of 3. 10. Total of 10. Defender AI in historical scenarios. Are at least one of the AI units on the same space as an objective it is defending? Yes, +2. At least one unit is on an objective. So we had 10, now we have 12. Ignore it because it's attacker AI. Ignore it because it's pitch battle. Now we're down to here, all. For each row occupied only by units you control. That's me, the human player. Only by units that I control. This row is only occupied by my units. So I get -2 because there's more than one. This row is occupied by only my units. So I get another -2. So that's total of -4. We were on 12. We're now on 8. If the AI's supply line is broken as a result of my actions, we'd get -3. It isn't. So we're on 8. So finally, we look at equal to or less than 3, 4 to 7, equal to or greater than 8. We're on 8. Sustained advance. Now the AI in the defensive scenario will get past the objective and reinforce those rows, get past the objective if possible and reinforce those rows, attack units in the centre of the battlefield, cut off the enemy supply line if possible. So that's what we're going to do. So that's our stance at the moment. We're actually starting to attack forward from our front line. So the first thing we're going to do is take our action points. For the rows of our supply line, 1, 2, 3 action points, 1 from the headquarters, and we have 1 left over. So that's 4, total of 5 action points this turn. Okay, we're going to take, draw 2 cards, 1, 2. This is a complete change now from the, oh, ouch, ouch, ouch. We have a tank and we have heavy infantry. So let's have a look. Like so. Put them in their categories. We'll now go to the matrix here, and don't forget we were on 8. We are defensive, so we're here. So the first thing I've got to do is deploy, if possible, artillery with transport. And I've got 5 points, so I've got to deploy 2 cards if possible, or 1 card with the highest cost. In this order. So have I got artillery with transport? I have 5 would be the artillery, plus 3 with the transport would be 8. I've only got 5 cards. Oh dear, okay. Can I deploy transport? Yes, I can, for 3. Yes, but only if I'm moving forward, attacking. There you go. And we're progressing beyond our objective. So I have to deploy that transport for 3. So deploy the transport. I'm just going to place it there for now. I haven't actually deployed it as such. I'm just choosing the cards. Can I deploy a tank, which would be next? And if possible, with an upgrade. My tank would cost me 3. I can't quite do it. I can't quite do it because that's going to cost me 3. You see? So we go on to a support card, an attacking support card. The only support card we have is this one here. Oh, it could be. I mean, if necessary, we could use that. In fact, we would have to. We've got no option to add or subtract from the result of the die roll if it increases the effectiveness, that is, of a particular die roll. So at the moment then, we're going to deploy this transport unit here for 3. And that's what we're going to do, which leaves us 2. So we're going to deploy the unit. Okay. So first of all, anyway, it's movement. I have to deploy the rest of my units. I'll just place him out of the way for a moment. So I have to move the rest of my units. So we talked about moving forward. These units actually can't, and it's a good thing, really. They can't because of the barbed wire. The next thing, and particularly because he's now wounded, let's just have a quick look at that, because there is a rule for movement if a unit is wounded. So please bear with me. I'm just going to have a quick look through here to remind myself. I think it's here. Oh, here we go. He's got 1 wound. Okay. I'm going to roll a dice for him to see what that guy's going to do. Roll the dice. It's a 2. The unit moves back 1 or more spaces according to their movement point. So he's going to move back. That makes sense to me. He's moving back behind the cover of that range. So he's moving off the crest. Okay. There's no other wounds. So the other guys are going to move as per their stance, which was forward or into cover. He's not going to be able to do either of those because that's the same kind of terrain card. He can't move forward, so he's staying where he is. The next guy here, he's moving forward or into cover, so he's going to move forward. He's got to press on. Remember that stance told us to advance towards the enemy. That's what we're doing. He can only move 1, so he can't actually move into there. But he may well do, and probably will do, in fact, on the next turn. Now we've got these guys here. We've discussed that they can't move. That's right, he's moved back. The light infantry, they're going to move forward. Simple case of moving forward. Don't worry, we're not going to break the supply line, because now our movement is finished. We're going to deploy, and we'll deploy the scout car. We'll deploy him. Where's the biggest threat? It's this heavy infantry. We're going to deploy him there, maintaining our supply line. So that's the deployment. Now for the shooting phase. So the shooting phase goes, and we look at the ones up front first of all. He's no longer got his HMG for the moment because we haven't reached the flip phase yet. So he has a range of 2, 1, 2. Do you know there's nobody in range? and he couldn't move any further. Well, no, he couldn't move any further anyway. So he can't fire. He can't fire. He's only got a range of 2. Same there. Same there. Now, these guys. 1, 2. No, that would be 3. That would be 3. I can't fire at anything. No. No. Okay. Flip over phase. So that HMG is going to be usable again on the next turn. Like so. So hopefully you've seen how the stance can change from turn to turn. We played the first 2 turns where the stance was fixed. We've started now at the phase of the battle where every turn from here on, we will, using the matrix, determine the stance. Using the matrix, determine the stance. And once we've got the stance, we know which units we need to choose for deployment. Whether we're going to fall back or just hold the objective, hold the line, or actually start to advance. And that will change from turn to turn, depending on when you use that matrix, it takes a snapshot of the battlefield. So I hope that's reasonably clear. Literally, this game has only just started. The rest of the rules, I think, are fairly self-explanatory, very easy to understand. And you saw that despite all the explanation going on, the AI moves really, really quickly, logically as well. Of course, he's wounded, he fell back off the crest line. It makes absolute sense. Hope you don't mind as well the way I just have 3 cards which block LOS for what I think is obvious. You might completely disagree, and that's absolutely fine. Reasons. That's the dense forest, the mountain, and the townscape there, because I don't like the idea of having Superman X-ray vision. Hopefully you've managed to grasp some of the basics of the solo rules anyway, and I've at least gone halfway towards explaining them. I also hope that my enthusiasm for this game manages to come through. I thoroughly enjoy this game. It does make me smile, and it's a nice fast-paced game, not too serious, but bags of tactics involved. So if you've liked it, please like this video, subscribe if you possibly can, and go ahead and enjoy this game. It's a great game. 2GM Pacific from Draco Ideas. See you in the next video. Thanks very much for watching.